Alright, so for the research project you need to reference all the sources you use, and we're recommending that you use the note system, also known as Footnotes. You can use Harvard referencing if you'd like to, but we're going to run through how to use the note system very quickly. So this document is on Sector, and it is a handy little guide from Flinders University on how to use the note system, and I'm just going to point out some of the key things so you don't have to go through the whole thing. So basically, the note system, you've seen it before, it's on websites, it's on a lot of Wikipedia pages as well, where you've got a little number at the end of a sentence or a paragraph that refers to a reference. So the note system is a sequential numbering system in which a number is used each time a reference is cited. So you need to make sure every time you use information from someone else, another source, that you actually reference it within the text. You would be used to doing just a bibliography at the end of your document, but we're going to make sure we're doing in-text referencing as well. So there are three parts to the footnote referencing system. You have the in-text numerical identifier, which is just a little number at the end of the sentence or paragraph. It's basically saying, hey, this information that I've just used in this sentence or paragraph is actually from another source. You've also got the notes themselves, which are at the bottom of the page as a footnote or an endnote. We are going to focus on footnotes, and when we use Microsoft Word, it's quite easy to insert a footnote, which I'll show you in a little bit. The last thing you've got is a complete list of your references in alphabetical order as a bibliography or a reference list. That's the part you're probably already used to doing, but we're going to make sure we've got in-text referencing as well. So if I have some information for a website, so let's say I'm looking at Samoyeds, which is my favourite type of dog. So I have a dog called Perry who is a Samoyed. So I'm going to have a look at some information about the breed of this dog. So let's say I've had a look at the origin, and I think that information is useful for answering my question. I've put it into my own words, let's just assume, and I've got it in my Word document. So what we need to do is simply go to References, so it probably looks like this to begin with. We go References, and then insert a footnote. So it's quite easy with Microsoft Word because we've got a little cheat system there, and you'll notice that the little one has been put at the end of my paragraph. I'm putting it at the end of my paragraph because I'm assuming all of that information has been paraphrased from that website. Now, you are expected to use more than one reference within your answers, so you've probably been needing more than one reference after sentences, not just at the end of the paragraph. It takes you down to the bottom to the footnote where we need to put out details. So let's say I've already done this website as a source analysis, so I should already have my reference written in full. So I'm just going to copy and paste it over from my source analysis. So I have here the author of the website, there is no date, title of the page, our web address, and the date that I accessed it. So that is the first and second part of footnote referencing. So we've got the little one at the top, and then we've got our footnote at the bottom of the page. And the last thing we need to do is make sure we have the exact same reference in the bibliography at the bottom or the last page. So we all know it's important to reference to make sure that we're not stealing any ideas or claiming that they are our own. So we need to think about, when do we actually reference? So you need to make sure you reference if you use a quote, so use the exact words from a documentation or an interview perhaps. Whenever you paraphrase, so using other people's ideas expressed in your own words, or if we summarize, using the main points of someone else's opinions, theories, or data. Lastly, if we use other people's data or figures, so if we have surveys from somewhere else or some statistical information that's relevant to our research question, then we need to make sure we reference that as well. So you can reference anything from a book, websites, newspapers, journal articles, anything you've used needs to be referenced. When we're doing in-text referencing, we need to make sure that the numbers run from 1, 2, 3 in consecutive order throughout the whole document. If you insert a footnote with Microsoft Word, it will automatically number these in the correct order, so you don't need to worry about that at all. You need to make sure that you are including the footnote as close as possible to the point in which you're drawing attention. So generally at the end of the relevant sentence following any punctuation mark. So after the punctuation is really important. If we have a look at this example just on this Flinders document, we can see 3 different references. So we have one after the second sentence, one further down, and one at the end of the paragraph. So that means we have 3 different sources referenced within this paragraph. You'll note they're not all left to the end of the paragraph. So the second part of footnote referencing is the actual footnote, which is at the bottom of each page. On the Word document, it will automatically put it onto the correct page, so it doesn't matter if you start to edit things and move your paragraphs around. So basically, they are what they sound like, a series of notes corresponding with the numbers used within the text. The advantage of this is that readers can just scroll right down and see the numbers to see which reference actually is important to what they're looking for, and it also means that your text is not interrupted with in-text referencing of the author and the date that Harvard Referencing uses. It also means that you've got more words to use with your word count, which is important when we're trying to cram as much information as we can into our research project. So you've got some examples here of references in footnotes. They're using a little bit of a different style than we're using, which is okay, but just keep going with the system that we're using. The last little bit I want to talk to you about is what if you've used the same reference a couple of times in a row. So let's say you've got different pieces of information from your surveys that are really important to answer the same research project question, and you're repeating yourself with your references in your footnotes. So once you have referenced a source fully in a footnote, there's no need to repeat the entire note again if you use it a second or third time. You just need the minimum information to clearly indicate which text is being referred to. So there are a few little cheats and hints that we can do. So, for example, if I have a reference here by F. Sullivan, if I use it again, I can just reference the page number after the author's name. That's if it's a book. If it's a website, it gets a little bit trickier. If it's the same exact page, we could just write the author and then the website again. If I use a source repeated straight after one another, we have a look down, we can write IBID, which means that the reference I've just used is the exact same as the last entry that I just included. So the last thing with footnote referencing is the bibliography or reference list. You've done these before, you add them to the end of your document and they essentially have a list of every single source that you have used in full. What we do need to remember is that the bibliography needs to be organised into alphabetical order with the author listed first, and it will look something like this. So that's a really brief introduction to the note system or footnote referencing. If you have any questions, make sure you do ask. It's a really useful tool to have, especially when you move into year 12 next year, your other year 11 subjects and university. It'll be a great skill to have as well.